Hi guys, Hengist here from Military Wargaming. Welcome back, Beansters. Today, French Somaliland 1940, Episode 9, Gateway to Hell. And here's our Theatre of Operations map. And we've got 6 incidents to report in this turn, which should be quite exciting. And here is a map showing the known positions with French and Italian forces. And most of the ground contact is taking place between Djibouti and Galion. So let's now look at the Gateway to Hell. And what are we really referring to? Well, we've got the Danakil Depression, one of the most hostile places on Earth. And south of that, we've got Adal's position. There are many different native groups and tribes with multiple warlords. And this is a place of hyper-aridity in place. So we position the Afar in blue to the west, and to the east in green are the Isa. These tribes are Sunni Muslim, and they're competing in a religious sense and also over territorial claims to the water in the Awash area. Now this map indicates where Ras Al Ghul is, Adal next to the Awash, and of course to the west the Amhara Coptic Christians. Now the Danakil themselves are renowned warriors living in this horrible environment per se, with salt flats, and they do salt mining. They also do pastoralism where they can, and were probably involved in the Arabic African slave trade. The ground is volcanic in places with actual volcanoes, huge geological anomalies, and we position Mount Doom here with its volcano. So we're now going to turn our attention briefly to Adal and what he's been up to. Well, he's conducted a lot of internecine warfare and raiding. He also attacked an Italian reconnaissance platoon and wiped that out. And we're going to look at the Texaco mission, which is in his area. Here we've got Jack Eland, a geologist who needs to get into this area safely to do some core sampling. He's flying in on a Loire 130. Here we see her flying in over Lake Abhay. You can see her land here. The aircraft disgorges the team, which basically arrives safely on shore, and then it begins unloading its gear and kit when suddenly it is sort of surrounded by natives led by one Bulla, a warrior of Adal. He comes down under gunpoint, and he is going to basically take them back to a base camp area that he's got, where they conduct a dagu, which is a formal meeting. Now Adal is given these magnificent pistols, which he with joy is firing into the air, and we're now going to have to wait and see what happens as a result of that. Now we're going to move to the firing squad in Djibouti. Here's a black and white. We've had a great deal of fun here, some very interesting games going on. This was our first cloak and dagger operation, which was thoroughly planned and executed with the aim to assassinate General Germain of the Vichy government, which they did. This resulted in a police crackdown, a military law being declared, and Operation Iron Fist, where the police went house to house, were rather brutal. They gained great information from codename Tintin, and ultimately interrogated a number of suspects. Dr. Pascal was basically the prime suspect. He confessed and was subsequently ordered to be executed. And we can see here with his last words, "Long live Mussolini," being shot. We'll see more from codename Tintin shortly. But in the meantime, let's now go to the next operation, the downed aircraft mission, which was at a sort of skirmish level south of Dikil. This was planned again by both sides. The operational map is here, and we've got a crashed aircraft. Now there's also a cave, and the pilots have come back, having been laid up now for 2 days to the aircraft, got some bits and pieces and also hidden some plans. When the Italians arrive by truck and the French by truck. The pilot panics when he sees natives, kills one of them and then flees, whilst the Italians come and see these natives all over the aircraft. But on closer inspection, suddenly they know that it's actually a Blenheim. They fire down into this, wound a man. The natives run off. One of them is hit in the back, who was wounded. The Senegalese take full advantage and set up a great base of fire. They also play Roquefort, because the Italians have loads of men in this. However, it was jokered. They still managed to pin 4 men. The Italians get round the aircraft and start examining it, but the Senegalese are intent on taking the hill. Again, great base of fire, this time 10 pins. The Italians now start investigating and give covering fire. They actually kill a Senegalese. They then search but fail, and then set demolition charges, while the native who is fleeing is shot again in the back and is killed. A camel arrives on the scene, and the machine gunner here gets a jam card. However, that is not enough to stop the Italians from now being flanked. With supporting fire, they go in and make a glorious assault in which they drive off and kill several of the Italians. They move up when a Blenheim suddenly appears looking for this downed aircraft. As she flies through, the Italians are a tad trepidatious and move back. They don't want to have anything to do with it as the pilots come out hearing a friendly engine and start waving. At this, the Blenheim sees all of these guys on the ground, assumes they're Italian, and dives. It gets a jam card, but that's jokered by the French, even though they're in line of sight. And the Blenheim opens fire. It's quite horrific, kills one Italian, wounds two French, but it then flies off. The Italians now continue to withdraw. They've got no interest. The demolition charges are found and defused. The pilots come out of their hidey hole. The Italians are now moving back at quite a rate. The French don't pursue. One of the Italians, though, is mortally wounded, so they execute him rather than him fall into enemy hands. And his brother runs off straight towards what appear to be Amaru bandits who are sitting there just observing the whole thing. The Senegalese contact the pilots. There's a lost Italian sergeant. The camel carries on eating, but ultimately the French are to get away. It was an absolutely great game, full of lots of twists and turns, and really enjoyable. On now to an encounter battle. This is the Battle of Bayonet Ridge. Here's our battlefield map. Now the Italians have planned this, and they're going to make an immediate retrograde move and then concentrate. And the French are going to try and break through here because they need to get to the ouvrage, which is surrounded. They have an initial phase line. Here you can see Bayonet Ridge itself, and the Senegalese are going to move forward rapidly, try and take this ridge and then advance and break through. But the Italians have other ideas, and they're going to basically concentrate into a sort of compressed frontage and deny them access. They have mortars, but it is in fact the Senegalese mortars who open fire first, but it causes no casualties. The French are to move up quickly with their scouts. The Italians are going to move back, and as they move forward, they start to reorganize, as you can see here. The French then rapidly advance because they basically recognize now what's going on. Their scouts move into the rocks when the Italians deploy a sniper which opens fire, pins down the reconnaissance platoon and takes down 4 men. We've got mortar fire now from the Senegalese, who effectively hit retreating Italians but no damage. They take the ridge. The sniper is then driven off, and they dig in as well on the top of this ridge. The Italians are nearly back to their position. They have men in the rocks. They also dig in, condensing their perimeter. And the French fire mortars, the smoke again to try and reduce fire on the apex of their position. They also have put their scouts into this wadi to prevent enflankment. Here we can see a better position of the Italians. Now smoke is used on what we call the hinge point again, and a base of fire has been created with lots of machine guns by the French, who continue to fire as the Italians fire mortars now onto this position. They're quite effective, but the French unpin. They also hit an advancing platoon, and the French are now to advance into this smoke screen. They put a lot of fire into it. The wadi, they repel their first attack from 3rd Senegalese, and now an assault is launched. And defensive fire fails to stop the assault, and they're in. And it's hand-to-hand fighting, really brutal stuff. The Senegalese break through and destroy the first Italian unit. They then drive in against the second. The melee continues for sometimes frightful casualties, and ultimately the Senegalese then hold under the base of the hill as another attack is launched against the wadi. This is again repelled. The Italians now try and attack the second platoon that have fallen back. However, mortars land by the Italians, killing the one I see. He was leading, so they are now leaderless and come to a halt. The Italians managed to withdraw. There's more machine gun fire now down onto the 1st French platoon, which is basically under a hail of fire, as is again the 3rd attack at the Wadi. The Italians now launch a pincer assault with 2 platoons, using a lot of machine gun fire. They rush in and smash into the Senegalese at the base of the hill. Another horrendous battle. Ultimately, the Italians win and drive off what's left of 1st platoon. They then retire back onto the ridge and hold as per orders, and the French withdraw to their phase line. It was an absolutely excellent bayonet battle, great tactics used, and an excellent victory for the Italians. Now we need to move to Fort Lauder, which is the assault, and here's the black and white photograph, and the battle map can be seen here with the extemporized plan. Here is the outpost. It's not much of a fort, and it's only 20 kilometers from Djibouti. Here's the checkpoint. We have a small garrison of some 20 odd men, but the Italians have 2 batteries of artillery and a large host, mainly Dubat infantry, as you can see here, and they are going to assault. But before they do that, they decide that they're going to offer surrender terms. However, the French roll a dice and they get a 6, so they're going to fight. So preliminary bombardment occurs. 2 batteries open fire, pounding the fort, and shells land near the water's edge, driving a dhow off as well. And it also hits the telegraph lines. We roll a dice, a 1, and that's down, cutting communications. Again, terms of surrender are offered, and again they roll a 6. So we've got a full-out assault, and the Italians launch without delay straight towards the enemy. Their battalion commander is a ruthless commander, and the machine gun, only a light machine gun, fires, including the sentry, who puts a round down and then runs, leaving his mates. But the fort is reorganising at this point. A dispatch rider is sent now to drive to Djibouti to get the news as the Italians pour forward. More artillery lands, and they lose a casualty there. They've got few men as an assault goes against the pillbox. That is basically overrun in seconds, and the medic now comes out. He was the cook. The dispatch rider keeps moving forward. They're defending now vigorously with a machine gun, which kills 8 Dubats. The sentry is now banging desperately on the door. The French maintaining their hold as the Dubats can advance in huge numbers, as you can see here. The fort hasn't got an earthly, really. They keep shelling the fort. They place a jam card on the machine gun within the fort, and have moved up with such rapidity that they practically surrounded it. The French continue to fire desperately, allow the man in who's terrified, under a weight of rifle and machine gun fire now. You can see it scattering all over the brickwork. They've got very few men to defend it, but the Dubats now decide to launch an assault. But they fire, and there's danger close, and hit their own men, but it doesn't affect the attacking platoon. The fort is suppressed and pinned down when the assault goes in, and this is a brutal assault. It smashes through the gates and then drives towards the actual building. It smashes into here, but one team is destroyed, but they keep on attacking and counter-attacking. Eventually they force their way into the lower floor, at which point the French decide they're going to surrender, and rightly so, but they have to surrender unconditionally. And the French drapeau is torn down, even set on fire by the battalion commander. The medic works overtime, and it's all over. And another great victory for the Italians, albeit against 20 men in the garrison. Now we need to turn our attention to the final game, the fall of Obok. This was the former colonial capital for Djibouti by the French. She has an anchorage and lots of dhows present. There's also administration buildings and a small port. And finally the Italians have arrived at their target, entering with armoured cars, black shirts, and they ultimately see the governor who surrenders, and so we see the tricolour down replaced by the Italian flag. There's a lot of cavalry present as well. The battalion sets up its headquarters here at the hotel, and the Panamanian merchant ship, the Sea Sparrow, is seized. So the Italians have basically taken their objective. And we've covered a lot in this episode, but the total scores: red 58 and blue 66, with campaign scores 252 and blue 238. Well, it's night actions ahead, so that's going to be exciting. So do stop by, share, support and subscribe. It's over and out for me. Bye for now.